Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am Mark, swimming pool in Florida, Hoffmeyer.
And I'm Jay, Beach Fog Cluett. Welcome aboard Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene, and now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring aquatic action or sharks. And it's very much sharks today as we talk about another fairly recent film, 2022's The Requin. Requin. I've already missed it. I've already lost how to pronounce it. We'll get there. Also known as From Below in the UK at least. So it's From Below is what I'm going to call it because that's easier. I can say that. It's spelled Requin if you're looking for the.
And listen, we had a conversation before this on the correct
like
pronunciation, and we were all on board. I had one that was way off from Google.
Yes.
Our guest Kaitlin corrected us. We were all ready to go, and then we're here. So the Alicia Silverstone shark movie.
Yes, Alicia Silverstone, James Tupper, directed by Le-Van Kiet, not Le-Van Cleef, different person. This sees a couple going through trauma. They suffered a kind of a miscarriage, and so they go on a vacation to Vietnam, staying in one of those huts on the water. Storm comes and takes the hut with it, and hilarity ensues. So that's this film. But we have a guest. Mark, you've already said who it is. Joining us back for the fourth time. I think last time you were here for The Shallows, which was like flipping ages ago, too long ago. I'm thrilled to have you back. It's Kaitlin McNabb. Kaitlin, welcome back to the show.
Can I be Kaitlin Smokey Credit Sequence McNabb?
Yes.
Absolutely. Kaitlin Smokey Credit Sequence McNabb, welcome back to the show. Thrilled to have you. It's been too long.
Too long. Thank you for having me.
You got to watch out for beach fog.
There's so much beach fog.
Beach fog or lighting your hut on fire smoke?
Oh my god.
Yeah, a lot of smoke in this film.
Yeah. So I was thinking about our Shallows episode that we talked about, and Blake Lively's character, it makes a lot of sense for her to go out there and surf, and she brought a friend, but her friend was too hungover, and she went out there to kind of experience a place that her mom loved, and it makes sense that she would stay out there a little bit late because she was just reliving that and like enjoying a moment with her mom who had passed, and just kind of like it makes sense that she stayed out there and went out alone and went on that adventure. But there's a weird world of shark movies where like there's always a trauma. It's like a sister's killed, a brother's killed, a father's killed, a mother's killed, and then they go out and then sharks eat them. It's an odd genre of the shark film, and this is another odd one that kind of scared me. For the first half hour, I was like, what is happening? Like, I didn't see this coming. And then I loved it because the final hour is bonkers. But what did y'all think about this film?
Oh, we are so on the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can say like 100% without a doubt when this movie started, this was not what I was expecting. Because like the poster, the trailer, I was expecting it just to be like a kind of crappy like rehash of something. So when it started, smoky signals notwithstanding, and it went to the pregnant belly, I was like, okay, like I'm into this. I'm into like this like introspective kind of like, open water shallows idea. And I was like, ooh, is this going to be another kind of like unfairly maligned shark movie? Like, like a Deep Blue Sea 2 or like a 47 meters down. And I was like really on board to see where it was going. And then, yeah, it just totally fell apart for me. It felt like 5 different movies in one. Like I was ready. What I really love about The Shallows that you noted, sorry if you can hear my cat screaming behind me.
Yep, you're fine.
We're all about animal noises here. We all have. Yeah.
Was like, yeah, like I hear you on the trauma. Like I hate, especially with like female-based horror movies where it's like it's about trauma, but then they have to go through like a lot of other trauma to keep going. And with The Shallows, there's a realization to things and we see her growth. Whereas in this one, I think they take a lot of that away from her.
Yeah.
And because of the ending sequence, that makes no sense with the rest of the movie. So
I think that's why I loved it. Because like this is 5 movies in one. And
yes.
So for me, when you watch these bad shark movies, it's just one boring movie. In this one, it's 5. It's like 5. I didn't see this going where it was going. And so I was just kind of like, I don't know where this is going. And I guess for me, I've watched so many movies that when I have no clue and I see Alicia Silverstone with a boat engine hitting a shark in the face with it, then I'm like, okay, this. I got pretty excited about this episode actually watching those scenes. But yeah, it does nothing for her character, and it takes a hard left turn, and it's clearly filmed in an Olympic sized swimming pool in Florida, which is kind of fun. But I like that it's 5 different movies, I guess, because it felt more entertaining for me, and I had no idea where this weird little thing was going.
I was never I was surprised by how few times I was like, is this still happening? Like I feel like I was engaged the entire time, which I was very surprised. Like I hate going in being like knowing this will be a bad movie, but in the back of my head I was like, this is going to be a bad one. Like there's just no way around it. I will say like I'm an Alicia Silverstone stan. I love her. I think she's great in this movie. I think she does the best with what she's got. I think she's committed. And I think she's woefully underutilized with this terrible script. But like I just this I still have so many thoughts churning about this movie.
She's
I think
definitely.
I'm kind of between the two of you in terms of how much I liked the end half out. The last hour is generous. I like the end half hour, but I think so. I'm kind of in between the two. But I wasn't really watching the clock, so I thought this film ended like a couple of times before it did.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
so when she finds the guy in the kind of the boat, I was like, oh great. And like everything happened after that, I was like, "What? Where is this film? What is?" So that kept me going. I was like, "Oh, what's going to happen next? An anchor? I've not seen that before. Great!" So I always enjoy a innovative shark death in a film. I guess shark kill. And yeah,
It
taken
just
out by an anchor.
Yeah.
the anchor scene, like if we're probably gonna jump all around, but
Sure.
so I was like, oh, when she's rapping, I agree with you. So this is how my brain is about this movie. It's like glitching the entire time. Because I agree with you when she goes into the fishing boat and the fisherman is there. I definitely thought that was the ending. And I forced my husband to watch this movie with me, and he thought his prediction was that when she reveals the hat of the dude, it was going to be her husband. And like this whole thing
He's
was going
back
to be
again.
and no, but it was going to be revealed to be like a Jacob's ladder. Like I thought this
Okay,
whole
sure.
movie was like it's definitely like this movie is a metaphor on metaphors on metaphors with like no rhyme or reason to them. But I definitely thought it was like her last gasp of life before she dies in childbirth. Like, and that
Oh.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
because like I think that's what I did really appreciate that this movie did try to do something a little different. It was trying to be introspective, and I did appreciate that it was exploring sort of like stillbirth, pregnancy, miscarriage. You know, like that's heavy, that's deep.
Mm-hmm.
It did not do a good job of that. And then the whole anchor scene, like I thought it when she was like wrapping it around her legs, I thought that was her actually like thinking about how she could kill this shark. But then when I read the Wikipedia synopsis, it said that she was tying the anchor around her so she wouldn't sink. And I was like,
I think
that's
that's wrong. I read the same thing, and I think it's
okay, because
just
I was like, that's
wrong.
not how an anchor
Yeah,
works.
that's the opposite of what it does.
It's technically the opposite. Um,
I thought she was wrapping the anchor around to like try and lift it up so she could, because otherwise the boat was stuck where it was, and she was like trying to pull
Oh.
it up so get the
oh,
boat away. Was the best I could come up with as to why she was doing
I
that.
I thought she literally wanted to lift the anchor up so that the shark would impale itself on it.
Sure, okay. I didn't give her that
And
much credit, and I apologize.
I mean, we should always give Alicia the credit she
Sure,
deserves.
agreed.
Um, because I thought she was actively thinking about how like she could stop this thing from coming at her, and then the ending sequence where it's like impaled, like just like the literal like it's on the umbilical cord, it's dying, it's floating back down. I'm like, this is too much. Like it's a
Yeah.
choice to position a sort of like stillborn birth as a demonic shark that we're rooting against. Like it was
Yeah, that's already killed your husband and tried to kill you a couple of times.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it goes like my biggest question here is like what is the plot? Because like you gave the synopsis up front, but that is like so surface of what's actually going on. Like there's a lot of like obviously they're there because she suffered like a very late stillborn birth, which is awful.
Hmm.
But then there's also like these like she's an influ also her name is Jalen and I was like,
Yeah.
guys, I hate this.
Yeah, that name
Uh,
doesn't that name doesn't yeah, that name grates a little bit.
Doesn't fit somebody of Alicia Silverstone's age.
no.
It would be like a 7-year-old would be called Jalen, not
Yes.
someone in their 40s. Like
No.
it's
I
like
thought
in Splash. Is it in Splash? No, there's a film that came out with everyone was called Madison, and I can't remember what film it was, but the name Madison didn't become a name until Splash came out because she calls herself Madison because of Madison Avenue. And
Mm.
I forget what film it was. It's really annoying me. I can't think what it was. There are characters who would have been called Madison prior to Splash being released, and I can't. I'm annoyed at that film. I'm annoyed at myself for not being able what it is, but that frustrated me at the time because I would be called Madison. It wasn't a name when they were born. Anyway, please continue. Carry on.
It also feels like I just watched like a bunch of Dune and what his name is Paul and you're just like this doesn't
Yeah.
like this is not your name. But yeah, she's like a wellness influencer who's also theoretically, I feel like she's blaming herself for like the loss of her pregnancy because she did a water birth. Like there's a lot of stuff going on that they don't really resolve. And like the reason that they're in the nice suite is the so she can like do it for the gram. And also she's always on her phone. Like it's
Yeah. That's it, because she's got a few things. Got like if it was just the grieving over the loss of the child, and just is the wrong word to use there, I guess. But that would be enough. But having her like she's constantly on her phone, and her husband's annoyed that she's on her phone all the time, it feels cheap, and so
yeah.
we don't need that because she can just be like annoyed once that they lose the Wi-Fi because the house drifts away from the land, and they're like, we've lost the signal. You've lost the land.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is
There's a lot of Wi-Fi in the first 20 minutes of this
There's a
movie.
lot of Wi-Fi. Yeah.
A lot of Wi-Fi. And so, you know what's interesting? I did some research because I'm like, why is this movie this movie? And so I found some podcast episodes, some interviews with Le-Van Kiet and
Mhm.
Silverstone. And first, Silverstone said that she was down for whatever Le-Van Kiet wanted. Like, so she said, I am 100, whatever you need, I got you. And she does it. Like,
Mhm.
you can tell that she gave her all for this movie. So, like, I have huge props to her. But this movie was based on, there's a real story about a kid who survived for months on a floating raft. So he read that story. He's like, that's interesting, but I probably won't get funding for that. And then he's like, I want to make a movie about like letting go of materialism. And then he also thought, I'm going to make a classic haunted house movie, kind of like a James Wan film, because he loves James Wan cinema. And then he wanted to make a movie about a very vulnerable woman. And then he also wanted to kind of make something that is just more of a like a domestic drama with some like, so it sounds like he just took 8 different things, put them in
yeah.
a fishbowl and kind of blended them up. And it's like none of the 8 I think really ever work
No, I was like,
entirely.
that tracks. Yeah.
And then like, so I think he had all these ideas, but then you just when it's just an idea for no reason for the story, it comes out like this movie because he's like, and then you
Hmm.
get this movie. So I think that's kind of why this movie is what it is. And I think all the beach fog is just to keep people from realizing they're filming at in Orlando
Yeah, which
on a
is
tiny
weird
thing.
because like it seems like a Vietnamese like promotional tourism flick, but then it's all
It does. Yeah.
CGI. Um, so that was weird. I made a note somewhere that I can't find now. Like to your point, I feel like as I normally say with movies, there is some stuff in here. And I think it could have been a good movie or an interesting movie or a more um complete movie. And like the stuff is like Alicia Silverstone, loved her, and then just like subtracting a lot of the stuff out of there. Because there's like I kind of have some hot takes in that like I don't even think this movie needed the sharks. Like I feel like it would have been like to his point about like a female sort of like trauma flick, whatever. Like I didn't even know if there was going to be sharks in this movie and if there were, if they would be real. Like again, I was really convinced that this was sort of like a cerebral um sort of like unwinding of herself and like process like how she was processing like the loss of her pregnancy. Um And like when the sharks were around, we weren't really seeing them. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, we're seeing all of them and they look terrible. Except for when they were real and they looked fine. But and then that like that kind of flipped away. And so like I'm like, did we really even like that's why I didn't like the last 30 minutes of the movie. Like as a separate movie, it was fine. But within the context of what they'd given us for the first hour, it made no sense. Um,
Nothing. Dropped the whole story. Like
like
everything
and
they
then
built was dropped.
it
Uh,
just yeah, like they just sort of gave up and they're like, let's do this. And then the other hot take was like, though I absolutely love the metaphor of the husband is literal dead weight and you need
yeah.
to shed him from your life. I don't think he needed to be in this movie. I would have much preferred if it was her on her own. Like again, it would have like I would have preferred this if it was kind of like a knockoff of The Shallows, but with something different. Um, but yeah, like I really didn't people I read a review that was like they're a fun, cute couple, and I was like, no, they're
Mm-mm.
not.
Oh, no,
Like,
no.
yeah,
A
it was
fun, cute
just
couple?
they were like I was like, this guy is a dick. Like he threatened divorce because she was too sad over the loss of her pregnancy.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it, yeah, there's just too much going on. Like even within, like there's too many influences. When I was sort of going through it, um, I was thinking it started out very open water with kind of that found footage style, like recording a couple vacationing, snorkeling, like just trying to have fun.
Mhm.
And then it certainly had elements of the reef with like the real footage of sharks interspliced and like that element of stalking. It also had like Babadook vibes for me, where it's like the shark is her depression. Spoiler alert for the Babadook. And
Yeah. Wait, it's not a monster?
yeah. And like The Shallow certainly is a huge influence, which I'm not mad about. It also felt like very Jaws 4, where it's like the shark only has the taste for her blood. It's like coming for her. And then her end motor scene really reminded me of in Piranha 3D when like Ving Rhames is
Oh,
into the
Yeah.
yeah.
water and like going at it. Um,
We need more jet ski work in here. That'd have been made it
Just
even better.
some.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have like paragliding is the closest you get to jet skis,
I,
and
I
that's not close
yeah.
enough.
I love that you brought up Babadook because this movie it does have that dreamlike vibe, and so you kind of could
Hmm.
like you absolutely could be like, oh, this could be like in her mind, this could be the trauma that has happened, and but yeah, I think what's I guess the great and bad thing about horror is actually the great thing about horror is you can like no one I guess would have watched a movie not no one but it would have been very hard to greenlight a movie with Alicia Silverstone where she's just hanging out dealing with trauma. So like but it has
Yeah.
sharks and they're like okay yeah go make it. So it's but I think some movies deal with that better than others. So you have movies like Raw or you have movies like what Babadook or you have The Shallows where it's a one character with a kid in a house very isolated and very focused, and those are the most successful ones. But this one, you got like the dead weight husband. You have they light their hut on fire. Like maybe they're self destructive and they lit their hut on fire, and now they like. I don't know if that's another metaphor. But you have an entire 20 minutes of like family and just the worst Skype calls ever, and then just a fisherman who's really nice and then gets eaten. And it I think it takes
Immediately.
away. I mean, it takes away from anything that they were building in the beginning. So it's
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Like the fisherman, I'm like, is he the doctor? Because he's like stitching her up and he's like taking care of her, but then he dies, question mark. And I don't really like I think that's what's confusing about this movie. Like like shark movies can like the shark can always be a metaphor, like duh, but it can also just like be a shark movie. And I think like to go back to the roots of this podcast, like Deep Blue Sea does that really well. Like you can watch the movie and you can pull out all these different meanings of like religion and science and man versus blah blah blah, but you can also just watch it as like a straightforward shark movie and have a great time. And I feel like what this movie does is it's especially in the first hour, it sets you up for like, okay, we're trying to be like, subtext, but unfortunately this is all coming off of text of metaphors. Like, yes, they literally burn their house down, their marriage is kaput, like all this sort of stuff. And that's why like the pivot at the last 30 minutes makes no sense because it's just like comes back and it's like, well, where was this in the beginning? Like it just doesn't match. And I don't love it. Like I do love the conceit of this movie. Like I think like you said with shark movies, like we're there are only a few ways where you can get people out on the water and keep them there without it becoming redundant. So I did like the idea of like, even though it's quite far-fetched, like the house being swept into a tropical storm. Like I was like, oh, yeah, I'm on board. That
That
sounds
works.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's decent, and it's like I feel terrible for that kid who was stuck on a raft or whatever for however long. So I feel like that was like a I was totally on board for that. And that's what I thought this movie was going to be. I just thought it was going to be a straight up, it's a survival at sea type of moment. Um which it was not.
I do like the touch of the propeller to the what do you call it? I have one and I blow my leaves all the time. The blower, like you attach an
Mhm.
engine to it. Like that felt like the most authentic thing in the movie. I know
Mhm.
that's really random, but I remember watching going, I like that. That's a good thing. I
Mhm.
also like that boat. It made me research it more. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
it's a coracle.
yeah, that
Yeah.
thing's cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
but you shouldn't be
Oh,
thinking that during a movie about trauma and grief. Like that's the last thing you want to be focusing on during a film like this. So
yeah.
but I gotta say, I didn't see it going that way. And so once it
No.
did, I was like, I don't know where this is going. And I guess I don't know. It I had a
But
big
I kind of
smile on
want
my
to.
face.
I want to draw out the metaphor of who the fisherman guy could be.
Mm.
Like, not the Jacob's Ladder scenario, but the house as a marriage kind of thing. So
Mhm.
they set fire to the house. That's gone. Her husband dead, and she moves on. She finds this new guy. She's often on some like foreign vacation romance kind of fling. She finds him. He initially helps her to like patch up her wounds. Then he dies as well. And she finds out she doesn't like she can be in a relationship. She might get something initially, but it's not going to last her long term. And this is her realizing she can get by on her own. She
You're
doesn't
on your
need to
own,
have a
kid.
man in her life.
Oh.
She can. I'm just making this up as I go along. This could fall down under the slightest scrutiny, but that's what I think we're coming up with at the moment is she doesn't need a she'll use someone for what she needs now, but not in the long term. She doesn't need anyone. She's
I
fine.
don't hate that. I think what strikes me about all the different metaphors, like even with the husband, because like I'm glad that you two throughout the movie too were like, this guy is scum. Because it
Yes.
really,
Oh, bad.
yeah, okay, great.
Every time he came back from not being dead, I was annoyed.
I
He
know.
died three times. I was
Like,
like, this
yeah,
guy again.
like get out of here. Yeah, like I really also, yeah, even when people judge people for being like, I was not on board with this guy at all. He was the worst.
Hey,
But
you
what strikes
feel better.
I
It's
was I
such a
was
bad
relieved when
husband.
he died. It was great.
Yeah.
He should have been dead a long time ago. But what strikes me is she doesn't have any agency in her decisions. Like that's another thing. Like if this director is exploring this woman and her trauma and processing it, like she's actually not processing any of it. Like with her husband, she never like her husband sorry, I just my favorite scene in the movie to go on a tangent is when she jumps off her little makeshift raft and starts randomly stabbing at the water for
Yes.
the
Oh
sharks.
yes.
Amazing, hilarious. But like she he dies without her kind of reckoning with the fact that he's not good for her, I guess is the way to say that. Like she is sad, like there never seems to be a moment of realization. Like she is clinging to him, literally. She even wants to go back for him, but the sharks take him. And then the same thing with like the weird anchor thing, like she's not if she's doing that incidentally to not sink, whatever that is, like again, she's not making her decision that, oh, like coming to the realization where it's like, sometimes bad things happen in pregnancy and it's not your fault. And and it seems like she's never really reckoning with any of that. And then same thing like when the doctor or I call him the doctor, but the vacation fling, which I don't hate as a theory either. Like I just feel like all this stuff is happening to her, but we don't see her process that. And like it just if this was supposed to be a deep and meaningful movie, um, she's not that character. Like she's just kind of like an incidental final girl as opposed to one like a Blake Lively in The Shallows who like comes to an understanding of things, and we see her heal herself and kind of change. And so that's why I didn't like it. I feel like it just didn't go far enough in whatever areas it wanted to. And I think it goes back to what you're saying, Mark, of like just way too many influences, and just not really thinking about what is wanted from this. So
Yeah, the only like active agency she has is when she after her husband dies, she's at the land. She finds some rocks and she climbs them, which earlier she wanted to, and her husband wouldn't let her. And then he's
yeah,
dead now, so she does it, and she gets to freedom. So that feels like a very on the nose, like, oh, he wouldn't let me do it. He's dead now. I'll do it. Hey, it worked.
yeah.
Like it's a bit of, but that's the only thing. Like,
That was a
beyond
weird
that,
thing too, like when they were screaming and she was like, "We always do it your way." And I was
Yeah,
like, "Do you? Like, where is this coming from?"
that was only mentioned that time, right? Because
Yeah.
then when she says that, and then it's kind of that just sort of they don't really follow that either. But yeah, the director said he wanted this to be about someone's awakening of oneself. But yeah, I don't think they nailed that. I do like the rock. The rock climbing is probably the one bit
Yeah.
in this film.
and she's
But she
doing it
does that
for
again after the shark almost like drags her back in and kills her or whatever.
Well, yeah, she climbs back up, right? Yeah.
yeah.
She yeah, she like gets out of the water. I don't know, like I feel like I'm the embodiment of that Tyra Banks gif that's like, "We were rooting for you." 'Cause like I was on board. Like I was like, they're trying to do something different. Um but and I also kind of like that it was an older woman too. Like a lot of shark movies are about youth, which isn't, which is neither here nor there, but I appreciated kind of seeing like an older woman going through things. And I think we're seeing like a lot of that reckoning now in real life anyways, like these people realizing they married like friggin' duds and again dropping that dead weight.
And
So
what's interesting? The fisher guy pulls her into the water too. So like he tries to take her
yes.
down with him as well. So
The vacation fling is also dragging. Men are dragging her down in this movie.
He sucked.
I read such
Yeah.
a I read such a kind of a cringeworthy interview with Silverstone where she's also talking about how she gave her this role everything and she was down for whatever, but then the guy's like, yeah, like you're not like in shape for the role, like how did that affect it? And I was like, oh no. And she's like, no, I think that makes the movie better because we were both in like suburb shape. Like she said, like on set he would be like, hey, can you do this? She's like, yeah, with 3 months of training, but I'll do it anyway. So she got
Yeah.
like beat up for this role, but I mean, like it's just sucks that she had to get called out for that. It's like the people who are like, hey, Jesse Plemons, did you gain weight for this role? And he's like, no. Like, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very cringeworthy thing. But I like what you said. This isn't like a super industrious surfer. This is or super industrious kayakers like in the Restocked, or just something like that. It was just watching Silverstone. Like, there's something fun about watching someone who isn't like a rock climber or a
Mhm.
great swimmer or a doctor surviving. I think that's where a lot of the fun comes from. So I like the
Mhm.
idea of like Silverstone in this role. I thought it was great, but I just feel bad that people had to talk to her about that. Like those are other interviews. I was like, oh gosh, like don't
Those are
ask her
just
that.
like boring people who don't have any real thoughts who ask questions like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, they sat down for
Yeah.
3 minutes to come up with questions,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
those
what they
are
came up with.
bad writers and people who are bad at their jobs. I
Yeah.
will say, like, I like Alicia Silverstone and so much of what she's done. And my husband noted this is that she's a very expressive mouth actor. Like, she has a very expressive mouth, and the way that she talks is unique. And I feel bad that she was forced to do so much that was like akin to like all her guttural screams that were supposed to be like reminiscent of childbirth and things like that. But um, I thought she was wonderful.
She's
She looked great,
Yeah.
even if she wasn't. I don't know. People are weird about bodies.
but she's right though. They're in suburb shape. Like they just went through a lot. Like she's had she had a stillbirth and the depression. Like you're not going to be jacked. Like so
Yeah.
it's yeah. No, but you're a mouth actor.
She
Drew
did. If you've
Barrymore has
ever
some of that
like
too.
watch her in like my favorite Alicia Silverstone movies are Clueless, obviously. Her mouth acting is on point, but also The Crush, which is a fantastic
Oh yeah.
Alicia, and we should all be watching that all the time. And her mouth acting is just up there. If there was an Academy Award for mouth acting, she would get it. And I don't really know how to define mouth acting other than her lips and the way that she talks is very expressive.
Yeah.
And she communicates that well.
I know exactly what you mean. And also, I just did a 1990s trashy thriller series with my friend Zanandi. She and I covered 1990s trashy thrillers. And so it's fun to go back through and look at Fear and like Wild
God,
Things and Freeway and The Crush and The Babysitter. And like the 90s had some really
The Crush is
wonderful...
not trashy. It is a good movie.
Yeah, well, I guess I lump them all in together as like, a dude, there's a guy, and then this lady falls for him, and then he's married, but then something happens. Like, I don't know what to call it. Like, I guess I call them trashy thrillers, but they're more like psychological erotic thrillers or something. I don't know. There's so many 90s versions of that I love. They've kind of, and they're still around, but I think the 90s was like a pretty good heyday for, like, I'm just gonna call the genre the trashy thriller genre, like Fear and Slither and like all those. So it's
like teen erotica. My favorite genre of movie is single white female, and I feel like The Crush in those movies are adjacent to that, in that they're not hunting down other women, but they're in that spectrum.
Oh, and Poison Ivy too with Drew Barrymore.
She's the patron saint of bad girls.
Yeah,
in that movie. I love her. And Alicia Silverstone is right up there. She's in the Pantheon right beside her.
This is my first time hearing of The Crush, so I'm adding it to a list of films to watch now.
Carrie Elways. It's
I love
filmed
Carrie
in Vancouver. It's great.
I'm done. But the only other Alicia Silverstone film we will cover on the show one day is one produced by Rennie Harlin, but not directed, is Blast from the Past.
Oh, I love that movie. Brendan Fraser.
I love it too.
That's a great movie. Again, mouth acting in that movie on point.
Great
got
mouth
a
actor.
Very expressive mouth.
That's on the list.
Like if there was a letter
produced a couple of films. So
I can't believe we produced that. Oh, Rennie.
I know. I had no idea. He did that. He did like The Resident with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I think is him, and a film called Rambling Rose with Laura Dern. I think those are the Rennie Harlin produced films that we'll cover when we run out of the ones he directed. I
really wish he produced something like Schindler's List or like a similar movie where you're looking through his IMDb and you're like, wait, he produced that? Like, geez Louise, Rennie.
He contains multitudes. I wouldn't be surprised. Like,
who's the Letterboxd top 4 of
The Boy in the Striped Pajamas?
There it is. Yes. All the light we cannot see. Like, this he has a very specific thing.
Now, how deep and blue is this film? Oh god.
He produced the other Deep Blue Sea that's about like the intense like emotional drama.
It's on the list. We'll get there one day.
Yeah, we need to cover that one just because.
We will.
It's a good movie.
I've never seen that. I've had it on DVD for years, ready to cover it one day on this show.
Oh, that's so funny.
I think if there's a Letterboxd top 4 of mouth actors, I would. It's got to be Drew. No, it's got to be Alicia Silverstone. I'm old, so I'm gonna say Jim Varney, the guy who played Ernest.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Carl Urban is a good mouth actor.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm just thinking of Dread, because he just did that whole thing without seeing the top of his face. That was all mouth acting.
Yeah, I think Jim Carrey's got to be up there too.
Oh yeah.
What
about Julia Roberts? Or she just has a huge smile.
No,
that's not mouth acting.
I think you were going to say Drew,
not most.
Yeah, I think you're going to say Drew Barrymore, and because I think it's like a specific way of talking, and I think she would be up there. She just has like Alicia Silverstone has a certain like cadence to the way that she speaks. Like it's a very, I don't know. She has such a peak like ingenue too. Like I think that's why I love The Crush so much. Is she plays like a 14-year-old in that movie, and you believe every moment of it. And I think sometimes that was why in her middle years, like with Batman, I mean, that movie's terrible, but like Batman and Robin and stuff didn't work. But I think now that she's older, it's like there was moments where in this movie, she's so lovable. Like there was a few moments where I was like, oh, she's just like laughing or something very cute. And she was so lovable. And then I remember like the first moment where she sees the blood and she has like a panic attack and she flips. I think that's like why it made it really believable, because this movie could have been like so bad, like the acting could have been absolutely terrible. And I think she certainly carries this, even though she's asked to do so many different disparate things. So it's really a testament to sort of to me how believable she could be, flipping back and forth between kind of like cutesy, apparently wellness influencer, and and then, you know, disturbed woman going through things. And then you do feel the relief at the end when she's laying on that boat and is finally seen. But
It always bums me out when actors just give it everything,
I
and then the movie
know.
doesn't. Like when
And the movie
it's
doesn't.
because you watch this. I was so happy watching this because like she legit go like there's no self-consciousness. Like she
Mm-mm.
threw herself into this role,
Hmm.
and it's just a shame that the movie didn't kind of deliver on top of her performance because you know sometimes I think you can give it your all, but if the
Hmm.
pacing or the shot or the moment is subpar, your acting seems bad because
Hmm.
it's just the whole product. So it's
Hmm.
like this movie has like a 2.6 IMDb score. It's just really low. And I don't know, I feel like she got let down in
Hmm.
this because I don't know, she brought it. It was kind of fun to see her
She
do
was
that.
like the serious moment she was there. Again, my favorite part is after her husband. God, I just hate the husband so much. There's so much I didn't like about this movie too. And the two main things are when they're in their stupid hut floating on the sea, they're both like sitting on the edge of the hut, and like his leg is like in the water dripping blood, and I'm like, why are you not like at the
Anywhere
back, like
else.
in the shade? Like instead they're like in full sun, half in the water. And then the other one, yeah, he keeps his dripping bloody leg in the water, and then I'm like, yeah, what do you expect, bro? But when he first gets sort of pulled off and bitten, and she, as I said before, jumps into the water and starts randomly stabbing. It was so good. It was so stupid, but I loved it. I loved it so much. And like, I think the metaphor on metaphor there is like, obviously she's willing to fight for their marriage or whatever, and he's not. But as just a text to the movie, I could watch her randomly jump into the water and stab things for hours. Like it was so funny. And
Give me
She
that
does it a
movie.
bunch. She's well, after the beach folk, she's got a rock out there as well. Yeah,
yeah, but just
great.
like the way that she's holding this, like it looks like a picket fence thing, and stabbing. Oh man, I loved it. Um,
Yeah, that was the good thing about how irritating Kyle was. Is just the progression of his leg trauma over the course. Like
yeah,
he cuts on some coral, then he gets crushed by a bed, then he stands on it, get that horrible cracking noise, then he hooks it on one of the platforms and wrenches it, then gets bitten by a shark, then bitten off by a shark. It's great. Just watching him like
yeah.
slowly worse and worse and worse to this terrible character.
I know, and I wanted him to die after that like first big attack, and then when he pops up in the water, I was like, this would not happen. Like
Yeah.
I didn't love that, but again, they were like, we really got to make the metaphor, but I just like I needed him dead. Again, love the metaphor that he's dead weight, but it was
When he throws her into the water to avoid the
I
rocks,
know
I get he couldn't pick her up. I don't know what else he would do in that situation, but like to say like, "Honey, I love you. Trust me." Throw you underwater
drop
feels
you.
not the best way to approach the situation. At least like explain, "There's rocks coming. Swim away," or just
Yeah,
something. But and then when she crops back up, she's like, "Oh, you made it!" Like he seems genuinely surprised that she survived this thing he tried to do.
yeah,
I hate this guy.
yeah. Truly the
Mm.
worst, and like it's yeah, I don't know. Again, it's like if you would have just let him leave you, none of this would have happened. And I hate that she blames herself for like being in this stupid hut, and like she's like it's because of me and my job. Again, the weird influencer stuff didn't track. Um I don't yeah, I don't get it. God, I really wanted to like this movie, I think, and I just didn't. And I think a lot of that also is the CGI and how absolutely terrible it was and
Mm.
totally took me out of the movie and I hated it so much. I'm on record as a CGI hater, but like wow, 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 wow. This was worse than like um I'm blanking on the movie I'm thinking of right now, but like oh my God, this was the worst CGI
Bait.
I think I've ever seen.
The CJ shark in at the start of Bait is one of the worst I've seen on this show. The shark that jumps out of the water at the start.
Oh, really?
I
But
think
it's
is
3D, so it
With the
comes right
jet
in your
ski.
right,
face.
but it's terrible in three dimensions. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a testament to Silverstone's acting and the poor effects of the film. There is a scene when the house gets wrenched off and starts floating. It's like pitching at an angle, and she's really making a meal of struggling to climb up the floor, and you can clearly see there is water just sat on the floor.
Yeah.
and she's pretending it's at an angle. The camera's tilted at an angle, but the water's just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
And I get it; it's cheaper to make it that way, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. I wasn't on board, and I appreciate everything that Silverstone did to sell
Yeah.
that she was going uphill, but the water wasn't. It wasn't going
See,
down.
I
It
was
just
there. I
sat
believed her. I forgot what science was, and I was like,
there.
I'm here with you on this raft. I don't know. But these people are crazy. Like, one, I would never, ever stay. I respect the ocean. I would never stay in like a float, like a hotel over the sea. Never.
Mm-mm.
And then when there's a storm and a hotel calls you to be like, do you want to move? The answer is
Nah,
yes.
we're fine. Don't worry
Yeah, they
about
stayed.
it. It's monsoon season. They say that.
Like, like
Yeah.
I know that a movie had to get made here, but also let this be a lesson to everyone. Don't stay at these resorts, and if you do, don't stay during monsoon season, or like if the hotel calls you, you should leave. So
Absolutely.
I think with horror movies too, I love The Descent because, they get trapped in that cave. Juno took them to the wrong one. There's some guilt there. Like there's a reason why they're in that cave. And it kind of makes
mhm,
sense why they took the wrong one and why it's uncharted. And you can kind of buy how they got stuck in there. Or The Shallows, why Blake Lively's there.
mhm.
But this one, they're like, it's monsoon season. They don't get out of their hut. They don't jump on the rock. I mean, during survival situations, it's really hard to say what I would do because
Yes.
I hate it when people do that. Like, what I would do against Michael Myers? I would spin kick him. Like, no, you wouldn't. But I guess then they light their house on fire and then they sink. And then it seems like there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, bad ideas on bad ideas on bad ideas. And I just
Yeah.
don't like horror movies that have that. I like when the horror movie will, even Deep Blue Sea, like they just were rushed. She wanted to cure Alzheimer's. Makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Like you're like, yeah, cool. Like I get it. Like sure,
Yeah.
but it's not. Uh, it makes sense.
Expecting
I just
the sharks to get smart enough to escape your facility is like fiction.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
not something you would see coming. You think, okay, they might get a bit smarter, but not like
Yeah.
like, they really
Machiavellian.
succeeded. Like they
Yeah.
like. I mean,
And
whatever
like
they made was like did a pretty good job with those sharks. So
and like I don't know science. I'll go on the record. But I'm pretty sure if you burn your house down on the ocean and there's somebody's gonna see that. Like
mhm.
that's
Yeah.
you will be saved. Like I just there's no way the smoke was not seen by anybody. Especially you would assume that people are looking for them as well. And
Mhm.
Maybe they
so
thought it was just more of that beach fog. They just
yeah,
couldn't,
this
they just
is
couldn't
beach
distinguish
fog.
it.
That was
Wait, was that what the beach fog was later on? No,
It's
that was
still the
too.
wreckage of the house.
Just burning.
just I and again, like was it smoke? Was it beach fog? What is happening? And then I just there's too much in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm
I
I
was
have
concerned from the opening credits that you mentioned at the start, Kaitlin. Just
yeah.
the misty credit, like the fact that it's like a double bluff jump
Mhm.
scare in the first 3 minutes.
I know.
Oh, when he
Really
pops out.
frustrated me.
Yeah.
Well, there's the jump scare like when she like survives in the house and she's walking through trying to find him, and then he's just hiding for no reason and jumps out.
That was
Why?
so funny.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
But the start when it's the misty opening credits, it's deep underwater. It's a shark film, and then you find
Yeah.
out, it's in a bath, pregnancy, and then it's all a dream, and it's
Yeah.
like this. You've already lost my faith. I immediately don't trust anything this film does.
Oh, see, I
That's
was
too.
when they flashed to that pregnant belly with the jump scare, I was like, "Pff, I'm on board. Like, what is this movie about? Didn't get the answer to that one, but it's I wasn't expecting it because again, the trailer for this movie and the poster very much think it's going to be like this crazy shark movie, which I guess it was in the last like 30 minutes, but
Hmm.
by the time we got there, I didn't want or need that in my life. Like that's not what I wanted from this movie.
Yeah,
Um,
it's 50 minutes before somebody mentions a shark, but even then, that's actually dolphins. And it's
yeah.
about an hour before we see sharks, I think. So yeah, it is
Which
a half hour at the end.
I'm not super mad at. Like
No.
I I always laugh at like the comparison between like, Rennie Harlan making his Deep Blue Sea where there's the funny like how did this get made joke where he's like who's there like ding dong who's there sharks. Like it's like sharks are on the screen, all we're seeing is sharks. Whereas Jaws is very much like, it's an hour plus in until we physically see the shark. Like we see, obviously it's like path, but we don't physically see it for a long time. So I'm not super mad at that, but it just, when it was finally revealed, it really didn't match. Like I can't get over how much I didn't like the ending, even though it was like finally the shark movie that they had promised. By the time it happened, it just like I didn't want it and I didn't need it. And it just kept going. Like there were so many, like you said, there were so many endings that could have happened before then that never never happened.
One of
So,
the biggest flaws with these movies are, you take a very simple idea, like you
mhm,
take a very high concept idea, but then you just kind of muck it up with too many other ideas. Like
mhm,
there's a movie called Shark Bait where it's just people are stuck on a jet ski while sharks attack them. That's easy enough to carry it, but then you have a
mhm,
cheating boyfriend, you have a cheating best friend as a girl, you have that drama on the jet ski. But I'm like, I feel like just being on a jet ski with a great white shark is
It's
enough
enough.
drama.
Yeah.
It's
enough.
They always add a little bit too many ingredients, and I think that's
Mhm,
what
Yeah.
kind of separates. When I noticed that this film was going to be about trauma, if this was like a bigger budgeted film that was in the box office, it was Alicia Silverstone, I'd be like, okay, we can explore this. But like movies of these budgets, like there's The Reef Stalked, where their
mhm.
sister is murdered by somebody, and then they just
Her
go on a kayak.
boyfriend, I
Yeah, like
think. Yeah.
yeah, her sister's murdered by her boyfriend. Then they get on the water to kind of just go for a trip, and then a shark attacks them. And you're kind of
Mhm.
Yeah.
like why does A plus B have to equal that? And it's
Yeah.
Why
I don't
can't
know.
people just be on holiday?
I mean,
What? What?
the
Or like
strangers, right?
You
Or like the strangers or vacancy. The couples are fighting, then they get
yeah.
attacked, and through that they're supposed to find like strength together. Like I feel like sometimes it's just stronger when the people like each other. If you're not
Yeah.
going to explore it, if you're not going to go 100% in on that grief, just make them a nice couple, and then
I
things go
I
bad.
I think
Like
47 meters down does like the first one does a really good job of that. Like
Mhm.
Mandy Moore, I really like that movie.
mhm.
I know people
Yeah, it's
don't,
It's
great.
and
so good,
I don't
We
understand
love it.
why.
so
Yeah,
simple
like
and
I don't
easy.
understand the hate. It's a great movie. And I think like Mandy Moore is going through her stuff. But like her and her sister, yeah, they really like each other. They're different, but they're
Yeah,
supportive. And I think that makes that movie really successful, especially with all the twists. Like I know people hate the twists, but I think they were great.
it's awesome. It's
Um,
mean.
yeah, and I know, so cruel, so sad. I love that movie. Um, and I feel, yeah, like with this movie, like I was happy when that guy died, and I wish, I was not happy when the fisherman died. I feel like
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just, like, I don't get why you'd be like, oh, this woman's been ripped apart by a shark. Let me just go ahead and check my bait traps. Like, who would do that? I was not happy when he died, but like I wanted more for her character in the end. Like I feel like in 47 meters down, while we don't fully like see her kind of like journey at the end, it I guess it's like it's quite different, but like with the shallows again, like you see stuff, and with Alicia, like you see her relief, but like we see nothing else. Like I wish there maybe would have been another I guess I'm just trying to make this movie into The Shallows. This
Yeah.
is what's
Sure.
happening
Yeah.
here.
The
Um,
Shallows too.
yeah, which I wouldn't have, like I would have been like, oh man, just a rehash, but like they were exploring such a different subject matter. Like I do appreciate that this is the closest we've gotten to like a menstruation shark movie, which I feel like, pun intended, is fertile territory for a shark movie. You're on the high seas, you've got your period, what's happening? Like I feel like there's something there. So I did laugh about that because there's a lot of blood running down legs moments in this movie. Um, which is great. They
I mean, you have USS Indianapolis Men of Courage is a period shark film.
Oh
Yes, a different
no.
type of period.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Those men weren't doing the real struggle of every month wanting to die.
I think
I'm not
this is really
sorry.
random, Jay, but I feel like I think I'm. So my family, I was talking to them a couple years ago. I have family in Iowa, and they're like, "Yeah, one of our family members is a producer on this movie with Alicia Silverstone and a shark." I'm like, "That's
Oh my
cool,"
God.
and I just remembered it now. So the guy Jordan Dykstra, I think I think I'm somehow related to him as like a
Huh.
cousin once removed. But he
Ask
also
him
did
what
the
happened.
flood. He also did the flood, Maneater, and and this movie with the
Should we
shark.
get him on the show?
Yeah, I you know what, I should reach out because I'd
More
love to hear about.
questions.
See,
We'll
here's the
cover
thing
those
though.
films.
Like I love the world of direct to streaming shark movies. And there's the sci-fi movies. So the DP on this movie, he shot what, Ozark Sharks, and he shot
Mm.
Ghost Shark. So he said he liked making this because he didn't have to worry about commercial breaks and they were able to go more free with it. So there's three kind of shark cinema. There's probably more, but there is the made for sci-fi. We have to build around commercial breaks, and then there's the direct to streaming, and then there's the theatrical release or like Netflix, something with budgets. So I would love to learn more about this world of like shark or aquatic creature features. And you go to Florida, they shot at Full Sail, which is a film school, and like you go to an Olympic sized pool and you make a shark movie with Alicia Silverstone in 1,000 VFX shots. Like I find that this movie got pushed big on Hulu. So in the States here, on Hulu, you turn it on, it's like it's right there. Like you can see it. Like they are promoting this, and like Black Demon got promoted heavily on Amazon. So there's very much so a market for it. I would just love to hear about the distribution and kind of how it gets made, because there's an audience for shark movies. So
I feel like the audience for this movie, and this is why this is unsuccessful, is like there is an audience for shark movies. It is the three of us. We will watch them all.
And Kevin Culp. And
Kevin Culp. He's still on there doing his thing. Because you'll watch it because you're like, oh, it's a shark movie. I'll give it a roll, even if you know it's going to be bad or whatever. Because sometimes that's fine. And then the other audience for this movie is, I like Alicia Silverstone, so I will watch this movie. I am both those people. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. And then I think outside of that, there's not much else. There would be no outside draw. I think both those audiences, well, I'm not so much disappointed as an Alicia Silverstone fan, but like disappointed in this movie. Like it really doesn't hit on either. And that sucks. Like it could have been. Like I agree with you. I think sometimes I really, really, really hate CGI though, and I much prefer like you guys were talking about Bait, and there's bad CGI in that, but there's also amazing animatronics in that.
Yeah.
And
Walt
like,
Conti worked on that, who did Deep Blue Sea.
yes. And like and same with like Shark Night 3D, like get rid of all the other because they had the same guy in Deep Blue Sea do their sort of animatronics, and it's like that's all you need. Like you don't need like 50 bill, even though I love the conceit of that movie as well. Like it's people don't need to see the shark as much as you think. I think too, like if we've learned nothing from Jaws, like I'm just I don't, yeah, I really hated the CGI in this movie, and I just feel like it really took away from so much, and it pushed it into a genre it didn't need it to be in either. Like you guys just did A Tank the other week, and I love that movie. It makes no sense,
great.
but I'm like, all you need is a cardboard fin in the water and then a weird monster that you made, and you're in.
Slow motion, jaws going up and down. It's perfect.
A toy shark and a toy helicopter, you need to ram them together.
Yes, and it's great, and it's successful. What a wonderful movie. That movie makes no sense, and I love it.
A big plastic shark mouth big enough to swim in.
Yes.
And poor Deep Blue Sea, right, Jay? Because when people complain about Deep Blue Sea, it's the VFX suck. Like that's the really, if you hear a complaint about it, like it was terrible CGI, but that's 17 seconds of there's some incredible animatronics, and then there's 17 seconds of bad VFX, but
and it's not even that bad.
When Sam Jackson dies, there's like a projection of water on a flat surface, which kind of moving around, and that if you pause it, it looks bad. But you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to pause it. We just did a podcast on it. And hey, look about it.
I guarantee no one, when I was working in a theater in '99 when it came out, and nobody in the theater complained when Sam Jackson was eating about the VFX.
No.
So it's
greatest death scene. It's also, that's almost 20 years ago, because we're all
25.
Old. Yeah. And so it's like oh my God. Yeah.
It's 25 years ago this year. I'm sorry.
Is it?
Yeah.
99.
Oh
I wrote the 20th anniversary for Rotten Tomatoes, so now I'm trying to pitch the 25th anniversary to places so I can.
Wow, I just had one of those moments where you're like, last year, 2002.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that is funny. 2002 definitely doesn't seem 22 years ago.
No. Okay. Wow. I just
Well,
needed
let's stop talking about that.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Mark,
I guess what I'm saying is about these direct to streaming movies is the VFX is bad, and that
Yeah,
automatically takes you out of the movie. And
it
so
does.
when that happens, when you're taken out of it, you can't like enjoy the movie anymore. You're not immersed in it anymore. You're not
No.
deep in it anymore. You are just like, that was bad. So that's the biggest problem with a lot of these shark movies is it's like you have to, I think the biggest flaw comes down, you have to understand your budget. You have to
Hmm.
understand what you're shooting and what is important. So it's like, do we want more? Do we want less? Like, Rennie could show more because he had a huge budget. Like, I think people need to really think about
Hmm.
what it is and like how much they have. And I think that's what separates the good streaming movies from the bad ones. So it's like a level of filmmaking still is involved.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I would say like with CGI, like I know why people use it, but I will always defer to yeah, the sort of like mechanics or the dummies or whatever you want to use because even if they're bad, to me they still keep you in it because it is a physical object in the water with somebody else. Like um Redwater. That had like a not great animatronic, but it still felt very visceral. And to me the same thing goes with the maybe not the reef withstanding, but like the intercut of real shark footage, to me that always takes me out as well because it's like
Yeah.
you like they're showing Alicia in like 2 foot deep water and then the shark that's like clearly an open ocean. Like it just feels like there's always that visceral fright from seeing like a real shark because they look scary, but it just doesn't. I wish people would stop doing that as well and just try to play around. Like there was a moment in I think Sharknado where they actually had like a shark in like a little body, half body in the water, and that felt better than everything else that they did. And so I wish we'd go back to that. Puppets and models and weird things in water instead of spending all that time on bad CGI and showing too much of the shark. Like I don't need to see the whole thing. Um
Yeah,
and
especially if it looks like
Yeah.
it costs $6.
yeah,
Yeah.
it and like if you're getting a motor to the face, there's no way you're coming back for more. Like that would never happen.
Like this the shark in Shallows was just a jerk. Like it was a very
It
vindictive
had it, they
shark.
gave a reason why. It
Yeah.
had a vendetta. It had the hook. She said somebody got you.
Yeah.
There was kind of like this weird thing going on. And this one I don't really, and there was also multiple sharks. Like they made it seem like man versus shark, but or woman versus shark rather. But there was also like three. So
Yeah, it's at least because she kills one and then another like she takes one out with a rock, I think.
yeah, and then
And she
two eat her
corals one, right?
husband.
Yeah.
Does she
I
kill
would
the one with
Yeah.
the
say,
Yeah.
coral?
Yeah, I think well, that's the one I talk about with the rock, but it could be coral. I don't know. Yeah, it's like in the shallows, she takes out a shark, and that
yeah.
it is dead. It's smaller than the one later.
I thought it
Yeah,
was coral because it was the same stuff her husband
that
cut
makes more
his
sense.
foot
Yeah.
Yeah,
on.
and she
Yeah.
just cut her foot on it as well. So yeah, that makes more
Yeah.
sense.
She mentioned that in the interview, so that's how I know it's coral.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it
I was
makes
wrong.
sense, but it is what it's there. So I think like the the best thing I was reading some of the reviews and the way this sort of summed up the movie for me is from an Ebert review, and he said the Requin looks like it was recorded live during a particularly harrowing Zoom meeting. I feel like I was like, yeah.
Like that's a
Oh dear.
Like we could be filming the Requin 2 right now, and
if I was a director of that, I'd be like, I don't even hate it. Like, fair
yeah.
enough.
That's
Like,
that's
Oh, it's
fair.
a
That's fair.
solid burn. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, when you get burned so bad, but it's good, you're like, you got me. Like, that's
yeah.
fair. You tried. You probably tried
I'll
harder than
just
we did here, but yeah.
It was a good review. He
It's
also called out Alicia for being great in the movie. So
excellent. Good.
but she gets to go crazy in it. Like the Aerosmith. No, Joe, that was an Aerosmith reference. I'm old. I'm 41,
we're
so I
too
remember.
old.
I remember watching her in the Aerosmith videos back in the day. It was
Yep.
she was huge in the 90s. Like it was like there was a couple years where she just reigned supreme,
Hmm.
Alicia Silverstone. But yeah, those videos were crazy. I remember that album. I have that cassette. Man, I'm old, and I don't mind it. You get more wisdom and more shark movies I've watched, so that's good. But yeah,
But I
Jay
would
had
love to see an Alicia Renaissance. Like
yeah.
I would have hoped this would have been, the the platform to jump her off, but it's not because I think she would be great in horror movies. Again, just so
Yeah.
expressive.
What
So
about
The
I would
Blast
love
from
to
the
see
Past
more.
2? We're
Yeah.
having a beef rage renaissance.
Yeah.
So let's do a sequel. And then Rennie produces it.
Yeah.
And
or
then
I
maybe
mean,
directs
she's
it
great.
even at this
I
point.
like her in romantic stuff, but I feel like I'd be in for a little like horror, weird something. Like I feel like she could be really great.
maybe they have to
So
go into another bunker, but zombies attack.
yeah.
Or it gets flooded and sharks come in. And then it's Brendan Fraser and Silverstone
I
battling
mean, we
sharks in
already
a
know
bunker.
he's great in action horror movies, so
I think I saw her recently in a horror movie. I need to look. I'll look that up.
you need to go through
She's
her entire canon.
she's got 3 things coming out at some point. Yeah, none of them are sparking me a little bit. There's no
Mm,
sharks, no sharks involved. It seems.
justice for
Yeah,
Alicia.
Oh, she was in
indeed.
Reptile, but there's no. I don't think that's a creature feature.
Mm. A lot of yeah, I was disappointed, I would say, if we're doing final thoughts. I was rooting for this movie. I was disappointed. I really wish people would stop false advertising on movies because I think it could have like people wouldn't have been as upset if this wasn't positioned as like some rager shark movie and instead something else. Um, like it's like with Jennifer's Body where it was positioned as like a
Oh yeah.
Megan Fox,
Hey
whatever, and then
dudes, check
yeah,
Yeah.
this
like I
out.
just let the movie be what it is, but also this movie should have been better. So,
I like Jennifer's
Yeah,
Body. Great pool scene.
it's really good. Yeah,
Lisa Frankenstein is fun too, but everyone hated on it. I enjoyed Lisa
I
Frankenstein.
haven't
I
seen it yet.
digress. Oh, she was in
It's
Perpetrator, everybody. 2023 horror film. So that's
mm,
yeah, it's
okay.
good. And it's on AMC Plus right now in the States. But I remember why she was in it. I was trying to do a 2023 thing for the Out Now There and A podcast. I came across that. So she last year she was in Reptile, Perpetrator. She's getting some work. So it's nice.
We should all
good.
revisit her old catalog. Again, everyone go watch The Crush. Fantastic movie. And while you're at it, watch Clueless, another movie that people dismiss as a teen movie, but is actually a feat of directing and
Yeah,
acting
it's
Yeah.
and writing.
iconic.
Yeah.
It truly
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
and styling. Oh my God.
How deep in
Um,
blue is this movie, Jay?
Okay, so short list of how this film is similar to Deep Blue Sea. Uh, as a character who is pregnant? Question mark, because Janice is pregnant in a deleted scene. Yeah.
mm,
They are staying out somewhere out on the water. Communications are cut off. There's a map with an incoming storm. Water destroys a building. There's a joke about sushi at one point. Bring me some
mm,
sushi. Uh, 2 people floating on wreckage at one point. Um, can't read my own writing. The house they're staying into basically turns into a wet lab when there's like a pool opens up in the middle of it. There's sharks in this film. A shark bites off someone's limbs. A shark gets stabbed in the eye. Uh, it's the hotel is off. It's the hotel's off season, which feels like the Aquatica skeleton crew at the weekend. There's some similarity there. I don't know. There's a
mhm.
detached arm at one point. I think that's the fisherman at the end loses his arm, and there's a bloody hand in the water, which is Deep Sea 3 has that. So yeah. And as for how deep and how blue is this film, I don't know yet because I haven't finished. I've still got 15 minutes to analyze. I'm sorry. So we're going to work out how deep and how blue is the first 75 minutes of this film, and then I will edit. I'll put a bit in here. So, Kaitlin, as you may know, going through this film, I work out how deep and how blue the action is at any point in the film. So Deep Blue Sea is, of course, on average 14.5 meters deep, about 31% blue. Do you think the first 75 minutes of the Requin is deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
No.
It is not deeper. It is bluer.
Oh,
It is
Oh.
bluer. So far, yeah, it's not
Are
deeper.
you accounting for the smoke and the beach fog? How much does that
I've
affect?
had to estimate. That's not 100% blue. That's like I'm going to like a 50 because you got blue and you got white. Uh, but yeah, so depth wise, this is currently on average slightly above the surface because they are rarely in the actual water. But I've yet to account for all of the fishermen diving at the end. So that will drag it down a little bit. But currently this is set at 0.4 meters or 1.3 feet up in the air, which puts it slightly higher than Shark Night and slightly lower than Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. And blueness, this is 45.2% blue at the moment, which means it's bluer than Jaws, less blue than Jaws: The Revenge. It's sat in between those two. but I'll edit in sometime around about now how deep and how blue the whole film is.
I love it.
And this is now me recording this sometime later. I have the deep and blue figures for I still can't say it. The Requin. Requin. I don't know. I'm sorry. So as you know, deep blue sea, roughly 14.5 meters deep, 47.5 feet, about 31% blue. The Requin from below is unfortunately not as deep as deep blue sea. It actually goes above surface level. It's about 0.2 meters, 0.21 meters, or 0.69 feet up in the air on average, because most of this is surface level. Blueness is bluer. It's bluer than deep blue sea. Hell yes. It's 43.84% blue. Yes. So this means depth-wise, it is higher up than Orca, lower down than Anaconda. It is bluer than Sharktopus, less blue than Jaws 3D. So it's our 20th bluest and our 51st deepest. And just to clarify something familiar, I'm pretty sure, I tried to do some research, the film I mentioned where characters were called Madison when they were of an age where they could not have been called Madison, I think is Last Vegas. IMDb has a function where you can search by character name, and I did this. I went through and searched for characters, films that had characters called Madison in the rough date bracket that I might have watched this. It might have been released, and Las Vegas seems to be the one that fits the bill. Although it could have also been What Lies Beneath has a character called Madison. IMDb is great. There's a bunch of films called Madison where characters could not have been called Madison. Thank you, Splash, and thank you to Todd Liebenow of the Forgotten Filmcast, who he had a podcast called Walt Sent Me. It doesn't do it anymore, but it's all about Disney films, and it was on his show where he did an episode on Splash, where I learned this fact that characters can't be called Madison if they were born before before the release of Splash. There we go. Back to the show. So that will do it for. I'm going to try and say one. The Requin. How should we be saying this film, Kaitlin? I'm sorry. Requin. I keep thinking raccoon. So there's a start of raccoon. Requin. Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Do you have any final thoughts on this film? And if not, do you have anything you want to plug?
My final thoughts are everyone should leave their husbands. They're dead weight. And
my wife doesn't listen to this show, it's fine.
Yeah, and yeah, if you have a stillborn, it's not your fault, and process the grief the way that you need to. And never stay on hotels on the water. And if there's a storm, you leave the hotel and go to land. Those are my final thoughts. And I love Alicia Silverstone.
Agreed. Excellent. Do you have anything you want to plug? Any other listeners can find you online?
You can theoretically find me online on Twitter. I've been pretty dormant, and I've got about 20 different drafts in my blog folder that I've yet to produce. So yeah, I've been taking a little hiatus from the writing, guys, but know that the mind is forever churning. So
when you release them, send it to us. We'll promote it on like Deep Blue Sea and everything. So get your help. Get your
Sounds good. Yeah, you can read my old blogs. They're still there, and I started a new series about creature feature Jaws adjacent movies. But yeah, I've just been, I got a haircut and took up knitting instead. So we're just taking a break.
Excellent. The haircut looks great. I haven't seen the
Thank you.
Mark, any plugs?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I think I can finally say it. I worked with Shea Serrano on a Ryan Gosling book that he did. So that's coming out. You can go to Halfway Books and buy a copy of that. I also, by when this comes out, I figured out how much time Ryan Gosling wears jackets in all of his movies. So I'm going to release that data post. I have a post-apocalyptic thing coming for By the Numbers. I got a R-rated rom-com one that I got to write. And then I have a couple videos for Film Theory. So I figured out something. What do I do about Minions? Oh, Minions aren't dumb.
How to Kill One.
Yeah, I've done that already. I figured out what they are. They're not dumb. In this industry, you need a niche. And for some reason, I'm the Minions guy for Film Theory. So I have that. And yeah, I'm writing reviews again at Movies, Films, and Flicks. So yeah.
Nice. I have nothing, which is fine. But I'll plug where you can find Kate and stuff is KaitlinMcNabb.medium.com, where you've written a post on Orca, and we've covered Orca since you wrote that, I think. So I'm going to go and read that now.
Love Orca.
That's
Again,
a great film.
Unfairly maligned movie. Fantastic movie.
Sure. Excellent film. Yeah.
Wait,
one.
you're being Orca's good. Orca's fun.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
being
We're all being
100%
sincere,
serious.
Mark.
I love this. I love Orca.
Yeah.
You guys know
Calm
that my
down,
thing
Mark.
is also loving movies that people don't
Yeah.
love. I stand Deep Blue Sea too, and I will forever.
But like Orca's good.
Orca's a great
Mark,
movie.
put the gun down, Mark. Calm down. It's fine.
Yeah, we
We
all
all like
love
Orca on this show.
Read my blog. I love Orca.
So,
Wait,
listeners, you can
Orca's
find-
good. No, I'm joking. That's not.
You can
Did
find
you guys
this
know that
show.
Orca's good?
It's
Well, like
you
it's a
can
good movie. Yeah.
go back and listen to
No
Lisa
VFX.
Leahy and I waxing lyrical about Orca in what episode was that? Freaking
That's
years
way
ago
back
at this
in the
point.
day.
I can't even find it on the spreadsheet.
It's not in the 100s.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
March
before 100.
2022 was when we talked about that. As episode 90. And this is episode, what is this episode? This is episode 185. So almost 100
Oh my
episodes ago.
goodness.
But yeah, you can find this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. Email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com if you too love Orca or have any other shark-related films you want us to cover or any other films that we can't pronounce the title of you want us to try and pronounce on air. Next week, it's the 25th anniversary of Deep Blue Sea this month when this comes out. So we are beginning our celebration of Deep Blue Sea 25 years on in all its glory. What will the next episode be? I'm not sure yet, but it'll be something Deep Blue Sea related. I guarantee that. So come back next week for that. But as for today's show, as for the Requin, I'm going to stop even trying. As for From Below, thank you once again to our guest, Kaitlin McNabb.
Thank you for having me.
I've been Jake Lewitt,
I'm Mark Hoffmeyer.
and we'll Deep Blue see you next week.